So Rand Paul is shortly going to announce he's running for president in 2016, and he's historically tried to brand himself up to this point as a libertarian. But what you're going to find is that as the campaign moves along, he's going to go further and further to the right, and he's going to become more socially conservative in an attempt to appeal to the Republican base. So just remember, when he keeps flipping back and forth on the idea of being a libertarian, he's going to waffle a lot on this. Remember that he's not really a libertarian. At best, he's libertarian-ish. And this isn't just me speaking. You could actually go and talk to libertarians themselves, and they'll tell you, yeah, Rand Paul is like the worst version of his father. His father at least was consistent, and he was more, he was a bigger believer in the actual doctrine of libertarian belief, if you will, whereas Rand Paul, he kind of flip-flops all over the place, and a lot of that has to do with sucking up to the establishment and also now trying to get that right-wing base vote, which is much more socially conservative. So let me give you a little run-through here, and you'll understand exactly what I'm talking about. On the issue of abortion, he is totally opposed, and he even proposed the Life at Conception Act, which is an attempt to, in a roundabout way, ban all abortions. So that, in and of itself, you could say, is not libertarian. Now, I should also note, though, that on this particular issue, there is a pretty even split in the amongst libertarians themselves. This is one of the few issues where there's not, like, something that's fairly defined, where it's like they're all on this side, like the NSA, for example. They're all against NSA spying. Great. They're all against offensive wars. Great. The issue of abortion, it is split more 50-50. But certainly by one understanding of the concept of libertarianism, he's violating libertarian principles here by being against abortion in all cases. So also, he opposes same-sex marriage. Now, this is one where he's kind of waffled on a little bit, like he plays that game where he says, well, I'm personally opposed to it, but it should be decided at the state level, and they can, make decisions in red state America versus blue state America, and if one place allows it and if one place doesn't, whatever, it is what it is, and I'm not going to get in the way. So sometimes he says that, but then other times he more falls in line with, I'm personally against it, and it should also be banned. In fact, he called it at one time, quote, offensive. So who knows? Is he more in favor of, some sort of federal ban on same-sex marriage and not even allowing people to decide at the state level? Or is he going to play that bullshit middle ground game where he says, well, we should be bigoted at a federal level, but if some blue states want to do the right thing and allow it, then I'll sit by and let it happen. But either way, he's not totally on the side of gay marriage, which, if you really believe in the libertarian principle of let people do whatever they want to do as long as they're not hurting anybody else, that is a violation of that. Because a gay marriage has nothing to do with a third party getting involved. So I'm personally opposed because of my religion. That's irrelevant. Take a hike. If you were really a libertarian on that issue, you would be on the side of gay marriage, but you're not. So there we have another example. Strike two. Then we have this. He was consistently against more military spending, and he was against offensive wars. But out of nowhere, just recently, he proposed a $190 billion defense spending increase, a 16% increase in the military budget. Okay, this one, there is no, well, some libertarians say this and others say that, and there's two sides, and you could still say you're a libertarian if you believe in that, blah, 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 blah. Nope. Go talk to any libertarian. Don't take my word for it. Go talk to any libertarian, and they'll tell you, yeah, no. See, we believe the only time you should use military force is when there's a direct threat of attack against the nation. So just to defend the nation. And they see the military budget. Ron Paul, Rand's dad, talks about it all the time, how the problem oftentimes in international affairs is us, is our empire and our militarism. And we always bring about a situation where blowback happens, which is the unintended consequences of an interventionist foreign policy. Talk to any libertarian, they'll tell you, yeah, we don't like all these crazy wars that we're doing, and we don't like all this military spending. 57% of discretionary spending goes to the military, and Rand Paul, a so-called libertarian, wants to increase that? My ass. On that issue, you're just not a libertarian. The definition of a libertarian on that issue, everybody knows. Anybody who understands political science and understands the definitions, they get it. Libertarians, by and large, are against wars, definitely against offensive wars, definitely against increasing the military budget. So you fail in that respect. That's strike 3, but nonetheless, I'll continue here. He's also against legalizing drugs. Now, I get it. He's a little bit better than other Republicans, but that's not saying much. That's like saying you're the tallest kid in kindergarten, because other Republicans want to also have draconian sentencing where you go to jail for life if you're caught with a tiny amount of some drugs or whatever. So he's not that extreme. He wants to change the sentencing laws and stuff like that, which is good, but he's not in favor of legalizing, so he's really not taking a principled libertarian stand. And then also, here's my favorite one. I didn't even know about this one before reading the article here. On the issue of free speech, quote, in a 2011 interview with Sean Hannity, Paul said he opposed some kinds of racial profiling, but supported the profiling, deportation, and even imprisonment of people the government determined were listening to radical political speeches. That is only the most unlibertarian thing I've ever heard in my entire life. You want to lock people up for listening to speeches that you deem radical? And is there an objective definition of radical? Of course not. As we talk about on this show all the time, the spectrum that we think makes sense is significantly to the left of the spectrum in the United States. I mean, in order to be like a centrist in world affairs, you need to be a progressive in the United States. So what do you mean, Rand? He means my interpretation of what the political spectrum should be. If you're listening to radical speeches that fall in line with that, well then, forget it, I want to lock you up. So, I mean, I know you disagree with Noam Chomsky on economic affairs. I certainly disagree with Noam Chomsky on economic affairs. He's to the left of me when it comes to domestic and economic policy. So does that mean anybody who watches a Noam Chomsky YouTube video or Glenn Greenwald or Jeremy Scahill talking about something, sorry, we're going to have to lock you up. That was radical. Or how about me for my job? What if I'm watching YouTube clips of Hugo Chavez, or I don't know if there are any that even exist, but I'm just giving hypotheticals here. Or if I'm listening to Fidel Castro, or I have to put a clip of Hitler or a Nazi speech or something in the show. So what? Because my YouTube history and my search history shows that I've read stuff like that? That what? I'm supposed to be thrown in jail? What? And how? Again, I don't understand. How do you define radical? What? Sometimes I read philosophy. There's like Nietzsche was had some kind of crazy ideas. Freud believed, people wanted to fuck their mothers. So what? If I read Freud, if I read Nietzsche, then I'm supposed to get locked up. What about Hobbes? Hobbes basically argued for, he gave a more intellectual argument, but it was a roundabout way for arguing for a hierarchical, authoritarian-like system. That's pretty radical, but he's Hobbes. He's a well-known, famous philosopher. Do I get thrown in jail for reading that? I've read the Communist Manifesto. I bought the Communist Manifesto. I wanted to see what the arguments were. I wasn't too impressed, but I read it nonetheless. Am I on some sort of list? You want to put me in? Only the most unlibertarian of ideas ever proposed. And by the way, some would say that the people that Rand Paul allegedly idolizes, that those people are radicals. I'm talking, of course, about the anarcho-capitalists and the libertarian economic theory people, the Austrian school of thought, people like von Mises and Rothbard and Hayek. A lot of people think they're fucking radical. Well, that's your dad basically worships at their altar. You're going to throw your dad in jail for reading a Hayek book? Get the fuck out of here with this shit, man. Look, Rand Paul, he is better than the other Republicans for the most part. Okay, he's good, better on some race issues, better on the NSA. But the idea that he's a libertarian, no, nowhere near. At best, you can say he's libertarian-ish some of the time when it's convenient. / now watch him run to the right to cater to the extremists in his base as he runs for president. He's going to do the same shit that all the other political candidates did, whether it's McCain or Romney or whoever. They were, so moderate, and then all of a sudden, we ought to double Guantanamo Bay. Do you guys like me yet? Am I hawkish enough? Fuck all you guys, man. Stand up, make an argument, try to change their minds as opposed to catering to their visceral, primitive, idiotic fears. But you won't do that. You want to know why? Because you're not a leader. You just want to get elected to get more power because it's more about you than the actual beliefs in and of themselves. Ron Paul should be ashamed of Rand Paul right now.